Discomfort is one of the greatest glues to be able to form friendships and to form relationships, because you go through a shared struggle and ultimately you grow together, and that shared growth is one of the most, as I said, one of the strongest connective tissues that you can have in a relationship.
Yeah. Hi guys, welcome back to the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. We're here backstage. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Ammar Kandil. Ammar, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So Ammar, as we were just talking, off camera, I've been actually following your work unknowingly for a long time. And I'm very privileged to get to sit down with you. I've been following Yes Theory and your content for like a year or two. Man, you guys do some amazing stuff.
Thank you, brother.
And
appreciate it.
I really respect the message that you're trying to give out, which is, to seek discomfort, to push yourself, to say yes to everything, which is why, I guess that's how the concept of Yes Theory came to be. But before we get into like the production side and how you guys got on that journey, tell me just a bit about, your background. How did all of this even start and like come together?
Absolutely. I would say from like a very early age, well, first maybe some context where I come from. I was born and raised in Egypt. I grew up in a very small city right in the middle between Alexandria and Cairo. It's called Sadat City, and President Sadat built it in the 70s to be the new capital of Egypt. And
really?
Then, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then obviously when he got assassinated, the dream never continued. And the way I would describe it is like I was living in a city that was a shell of a dream. It wanted to be something, but it couldn't. And then it transformed to be an industrial city. But at the same time, I'm very grateful to be growing up in an environment that pushed me to seek outside of my surroundings.
Sure.
I didn't just grow up in Cairo where everything was around. I actually had to learn to take the bus to go to Cairo when I was 12 and a half or 13 years old and be faced by the overwhelming chaos of Cairo and needing to take the metro so I can get to this interesting organization that I was, wanting to take a course with or all the opportunities that I was pursuing. So I would describe, my environment as one that pushed me to be a seeker. And ultimately that ended up, transcending into my work and really like building the association early on in my life between seeking discomfort, going further and further away from home, and the incredible growth and the incredible people that I got to meet. And if you track my life, like plot it on on a map, you will see that that's a trend that continued for the rest of my life. Like I moved further and further away from home to pursue bigger and bigger opportunities so it's the association was built very early on to seek.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned a very good point. I think our environment plays such a big role in how we see the world, the values that we build. So for it to be a shell of a dream gave you the ability, you're like, this was a shell of a dream, now I want to create the dream that I wish could have happened in this place, or we could have all done together.
Exactly. And there was also like a pattern of me being a part of, like, again, if you trace my life and the different educational institutions that I was a part of, whether it's the African Leadership Academy in South Africa or Quest University in Canada, they were all startups. I was one of the first, in one of the first classes to be in both institutions. So it feels like my incubation as a young man, as a dreamer, happened in all environments that were very much pushing me to think, as a startup, to act like a startup, because those were the, people go to universities that have been around for 100, 200 years.
Sure.
But for me, my university was like 7 years old. So it was all, you could still form and participate in forming the systems that will be. And I think this is where my motivation and my vigor to just want to build something that can have an impact like that. And truly, not just saying, I want to change the world as this like cliche thing that we drop to make people around us like us more, but rather Mo Gaudat, he's a hero. Just passing through. So yeah, it's been, and I lost my train of thought.
So you were talking about, in your educational institutions growing up, and you went to all these different places, and it's interesting that you were the first in all of those. So you were in like you were saying, in a startup.
Yeah.
So listening to your story, where you grew up, and going through those experiences, it makes personally to me a lot of sense how you guys have ended up doing what you do, because you've been a startup almost from from when you were a kid, then at university,
Yeah.
and so on. So you were forced to be creative.
And actually, on that, when you said it as a kid, I forgot to say that the school that I went to in Sadat City, I was the first ever class. So kindergarten, KG1, I was the first ever KG1. So it's a trend that actually started from the onset of my life. I was a part of this new dream for a school, and I attribute a lot of I owe that school and my teachers there a lot, because it was all a new dream and they cared a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm a product of that caring.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Listen, such an inspiring story. So I'm someone who, like you, I try to seek out discomfort. I don't think I'm on your level, guys. You know, I've seen the things that you do. Even for me, I'm like, it's a little bit out of Khalid's comfort zone. But obviously, as you've known, I think through your experience and what you guys have built, a dream alone is quite lonely.
Yeah.
And I think what has made you guys all successful is you seem to have found your community of people who share that same passion, value, belief to improve themselves, to seek out discomfort, to face their fears. So tell us how the Yes Theory team kind of came together.
It's a great question, and a bunch of things I want to reflect on there. But to just bring it to the start, to the beginning days of how it all came to being. You know, we were all just a bunch of young men in our early 20s, all, you know, weren't necessarily settling with, you know, like wanting to graduate and go work for Google or anything like that. We all had our dreams that we wanted to pursue individually. But then there was a moment of time 10 years ago in the summer of 2015 where we met each other and very quickly realized that we shared similar values, and we were all down for an adventure. And that adventure was doing something that we called Project 30, doing 30 things in 30 days that we had never done before, and telling a story about it on YouTube every single day. And in that experience was when we uncovered this like unpolished gem that we came across, which is, you know, we were still trying to understand it, but we built a very strong association between the consistency of going out of your comfort zone and the depth of relationship with the people that you were doing it with.
Yeah.
And how discomfort is one of the greatest glues to be able to form friendships and to form relationships, because you go through a shared struggle and ultimately you grow together, and that shared growth is one of the most as I said, one of the strongest connective tissues that you can have in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we very early realized that after the 30 days, you know, even though we had no plan, no budget to necessarily grow it to be anything bigger, we just decided that we're gonna continue to explore what's in this, and we're gonna continue to polish that gem. And then, as I, you know, very quickly we crystallized it in the statement "seek discomfort."
Yeah.
You know, at first it was embrace discomfort, and we realized like no, there's actually something a little bit
step
more.
before that.
It's actually a step after that, which is like the proactivity of, or maybe it depends on how you see
Sure,
it.
yeah.
The step where, you know, you're not just waiting for the discomfort and being good at dealing with it, but there's a value in you going after the things that make you uncomfortable, and that active pursuit is actually what contributes to your growth the most.
100%. I love that, man.
Yeah.
I really respect that. That's what I try to do in my own life personally. I'm curious. I just had this thought. You guys have done so many different things and really pushed yourselves out of your comfort zones in so many different ways, environments, with people. I'm curious for you personally, is there an area that you're still seeking discomfort in that you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for that discomfort just yet?
Absolutely. I would say, alhamdulillah, I'm at a point where I am ready for the discomfort, and I'm personally pursuing it, but I feel like I have not gotten to a point in my life where I felt my full health and my full fitness.
Okay.
Even though I have done, you know, I've ran a marathon and I've climbed mountains that are tough and require training and this, but I still don't feel like I was ever in my top shape.
Okay.
And this is the year where I pursue that, and I push, push against certain blockages that have prevented me in the past.
Sure.
So, yeah, just the realization that, you know, health is the most important thing, and, you know, what's the saying? So you know, you can have 100 problems. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this, but like the idea is if health is the problem, it's the only problem that you have.
Exactly.
So, alhamdulillah, I'm healthy. It's a blessing, and I wanna make the blessing count by actually committing and making sure that I'm in the healthiest shape possible, because it's also, it also my realization as a 30-year-old, and maybe at first we're running around, there's not enough time to work out, but ultimately there's you just realize that your dreams are only gonna upgrade as your own vessel upgrades, and there's gonna be a limit that you reach if you're not in your top shape mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I feel, alhamdulillah, I've pursued a lot of growth in these areas throughout the past 10 years. But I think I need to push myself a little bit more in the physical element, and not necessarily like I want to look a certain way, but it's just the feeling of like, oh, I'm feeling my full strength.
No, I resonate with that a lot, man. So 2 years ago, I was 25 kilos heavier than I am right now. So, and my coach,
you look amazing.
Thank you. So I have to give credit to my wife. She sat me down. She's like, because I was having health issues and whatever. She's like, I think you need to start taking more care of your health. And I just took that nugget and I just flew with it.
Yeah.
But my coach said something that kind of touches on what you said. He's like, look, when your health is in order, every single area of your life will improve. Your relationships, your business, your mental clarity, like all these things. So I really resonate with that story.
100%.
So one of the things that has made you guys, I think, very successful is when you started, you didn't have a plan, but then you kind of figured out a solution or like a trick, not only a trick, like a niche of this is how we want to present this project. So what I was thinking, because the stuff you guys do is beautifully done, like from a production aspect. So could you walk me through, let's say I'm like, Ammar, okay, we're gonna do the shoot in some place. What kind of, because I'm sure there's budgets, there's a lot of time and pre-prep before like the recording and the post. So what does a typical project kind of take you?
So actually, this is probably one of like a big misconception that people have. Just because the production quality comes across in a certain way, then that means that all this prep and pre-production happens. But of course a level of it happens so that we're not just like landing not knowing anything or anyone.
Sure.
Even though a lot of our adventures actually push us to want to land in places and not know anyone or anything, even though we could connect with any tour guide or any tourism company that could like open doors. But ultimately we just know that that's not why people watch Yes Theory. And,
sure.
And the key words here are attainable aspiration.
Attainable aspiration.
Yes. So you want to watch something on Yes Theory that makes you want to switch off your phone or turn off your TV or close your laptop and just go pursue your own yes. The feeling should never that, oh my God, that's so amazing, but I can never do that. And, it was a very conscious effort from us throughout the journey to make sure that that's the feeling of Yes Theory, that you don't watch and you feel paralyzed because it's amazing, but I can never do it. So back to the production and what we do, and that's, I guess, the reason I said that is because you can't just see us show up to a place with all these doors being opened, and like if you're someone who dreams to travel to, I don't know, like the UAE, and then all of a sudden we arrive and from the the door of the plane we're just being escorted and going to places and going to the top of Burj Khalifa. You're not watching that and you're like, oh, I can do that too. So it was really important that, as I said, like you finish watching whatever you're watching and you tell yourself, I can do that too. And that's why on a lot of our travels, you can't really have so much prep, or not more prep than the average person would do. But our process is actually, our pre-production is a very intentional process of opening our hearts. And we do that in prayer, in meditation, and just like grounding and talking amongst each other and like, okay, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And really making sure that we just bring it, that we're walking like, we're antennas. We're just sending out signals for good things to happen. And if you watch Yes Theory for the past 10 years, if you've been on an adventure with us, there's people who freak out because it feels supernatural when they're with us and things start happening in a certain sequence and with the serendipity that it happens with. And ultimately, I just think that's where my belief is. We're all antennas and receivers, and we're all walking, sending and receiving beyond our even body language and beyond what our conscious mind perceives. And that's why the best prep that we can do is to be in the best state that we can possibly be in, so we attract the magic that people connect with online and watching Yes Theory videos.
Man, I really admire that, and I appreciate it's very humbling to hear that from you. I think I love the message that you guys are trying to give out of Because like you said, you guys, with all the work you've done, with the platform you built, you have the keys to any door.
Yeah.
But you consciously choose not to do that because you want to make it. I think it adds more depth to your message.
Absolutely.
You know, because if you're like, yes theory, seek discomfort, but everything I'm getting is comfortable, there's kind of a disconnect there.
Absolutely.
You know, like as an audience, from an audience perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's you know, and it's hard because you know it's exhausting to just be. You're facing the uncertainty and the unknown every single time, even though we know that we have the option for it not to be unknown and not to be uncertain. But ultimately, you just finish. You know, that's why I don't think of it as shoots or as a production. We're just going out on a genuine adventure, and
sure.
and we have learned to capture these adventures in a way that is not intrusive with our presence, our sense of presence, and also, you know, talking about the technical side of things, which is obviously people are noticing that throughout the years we've gotten, you know, we've expanded and it's gotten better and better, and that just comes down to us being able to identify a certain talent. The way I see it is like kind of like with tech companies, it's like a full stack. Same way there's like a full stack engineer, there's like a full stack filmer, producer, vibes person, and like drone operator, and it's just you just need one person. And you know, for us, it's not like we use maximum of 2 cameras. Sometimes it's the camera that is just like in our hand, which gives you that, you know, POV, you know, personal angle. And then there's like the really nice camera with very proficient cinematographer with us, who's usually a friend and someone that we vibe with, because it can't just be someone who's like, go get that shot, or someone that doesn't make, you know, one of the, you know, older people that we love seeking, you know, their wisdom in our travels. They can't just have someone who looks so serious and doesn't make them feel comfortable. So, you know, it's just about coming, you know, identifying the right people that can be connected to why you're there, and have the sufficient talent to be able to capture it in a way that lives up to the beauty of the magic that we experience.
Yeah, it's so funny you touched on the cultural aspect, because that's where I was going to go next. As they say, you know, any company, what makes a company successful is the people. But I feel like with what you guys do, number one, just because it's very creative, you guys are a very close-knit, you know, team. The chemistry and the culture is almost double important, you know, for you guys, because like you said, if it's an old person, no matter what you're doing, you need someone that you can be 100% yourself around, and they can be 100% themselves around you, besides the performance aspect.
Yeah,
because you can get people can do amazing things.
Exactly.
But if we don't vibe, especially with, and because what you guys are doing is going out of your comfort zone, it's very vulnerable too.
Absolutely.
You know, so you need someone that I can be like, I'm comfortable to be this uncomfortable with you.
Yeah, spot on. You nailed it. Yeah, it's all vibes. It's you know, as casual as that sounds, it truly is all vibes, and it's you know, it's something that we have to protect for at all times, even though, you know, sometimes we take business hits, you know, and it's, you know, obviously you don't want to necessarily go too much into that, but we had, like, you know, over the past years, there's been moments where we had to give up business opportunities or prioritize the vibes over, you know, just like making, you know,
money's tempting, bro.
Making money,
it's
and
tempting.
Yeah,
it's hard.
But ultimately, you know, the conscious decision that we've made throughout is, do we want to build something that will last 5 years?
There you go.
10 years, or do we want to build something that is like 50, 100? I personally describe, from the age of 21 building this, I said I want to build 1,000-year-old project.
That's awesome.
And when I say, and 10 years later, I really believe that we're doing it, because it's now, like, the Yes Theory doesn't exist in a centralized place. It's not this YouTube channel. It's like it's you watching, I don't know, Wim Hof, and deciding to go in and like get in the cold, or you know, many people today just shared the startups that they're pursuing, and the major decisions that they've made in their lives being driven by Yes Theory. So for me, it's like they just take its nodes, and these nodes just start operating in their own environments, and then you're gonna inspire someone by your own way of saying yes, and by your own frequency, the vibe that you exist in. And that's also, I think, 10 years into this journey, I'm realizing that it's actually the only way to change the world is to just be in that frequency, because we get so hung up on wanting to have big dreams and do big things that can impress people around, or signal to people around that we really want to change the world. And it comes from a really genuine place, but we just want to tell people around that we care about the world and we want to do the thing. But so many times you end up you lose yourself in that, and you end up not operating on the frequency that is actually going to inspire someone that comes across you to wanna like also do their thing.
For sure.
You know, like you never know, you could be in a farmer's market and you could see just someone who's like, you know, quit their very fancy job and all of a sudden he or she are like making candles or making jewelry, but you just notice that this person is vibrating in such a different way that signals to you that maybe you can have that too, and maybe you're like a rocket scientist at NASA, but you could be miserable.
True.
And I don't think that's how you change the world. You change the world by being in a frequency that will inspire the next person to go do what they're meant to do. And we've been so lucky to be able to trace back Yes Theory's inspiration, the seeds of inspiration, to actually get to the point. So the background is, you know, Yes Theory was, one of the seeds of inspiration for Yes Theory was us watching a group of 4 Canadian young men. They called themselves The Buried Life, and it was they started an MTV show in 2009, 2010. And what they did is they set the 100 things that they wanted to do, a bucket list of 100 things that they wanted to do before they died. And with everything that they crossed off, they helped a stranger cross off a dream. So, you know, we watched that, and that planted the seed of inspiration in our minds that yes, we could turn this adventure of pursuing our own dreams into something that we could make a living out of, and could spread, you know, to more people and have it be shared by more people. So when we became friends with The Buried Life, when we moved to Los Angeles and we connected with them, and now they are some of our best friends and, you know, and mentors.
Shout out, boys.
Shout out to The Buried Life. I remember one night I asked Ben, who's one of the guys, I was like, Ben, do you remember like how The Buried Life was inspired? And he was like, oh yeah, I can tell you exactly how. There was this kid in our high school, his name was Aaron, and he was just like such a free spirit. And at some point he started a charity, he started a clothing line that had a charitable element, where every time you bought something, it's not just, it tells you like, oh, we'll donate this. They called you when you ordered, and then they gave you like, hey, we have these different organizations, which one would you like to donate to? So it was maybe a bit more personalized of an experience. Ultimately, you know, that clothing line never went anywhere, but the boys, you know, Duncan and Ben and Johnny and Dave, The Buried Life, they just noticed that this guy was doing something that like lit up his soul on fire and was making him vibrate differently, and that inspired them to look within themselves and figure out what is it that they're gonna do. And they did their thing, and then we found their thing, and we did our thing, and then by doing our thing, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people got to do their thing. And you can trace it back to Aaron, a kid in high school on Vancouver Island, just doing his thing, and you can now trace impact of millions and millions of people. We're lucky to be able to trace it back, but I think that phenomenon exists, is so prevalent in our lives. That's why I really, if it really comes down to anything in this entire Yes Theory journey, it's to focus on the thing that allows you to vibrate energetically in a way that truly inspires people around. Not just because you're doing the thing that sounds impressive or thing that sounds like it's changing the world or it's making a lot of money. People see through. It's like probably we've learned that before we've learned language.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can sniff it out. Yeah. You know, I love our beautiful message, man. Really. I love what you said in the sense of we all sometimes I think we get too caught up in our dreams, too caught up with trying to make an impact, like as you beautifully said, that we lose ourselves. Yeah. And that Aaron kid who inspired The Buried Life and then inspired you guys. When someone, and you touched on it, when someone is, I think the word that the message you were trying to give out is when it comes from an authentic place. Absolutely. That's when it hits. Yeah. That's why that woman you saw at the farmer's market, that's why I felt that with her. Yeah. Regardless of the status, regardless of all those things, that's the thing that connects so many people. Absolutely. And I resonate with that a lot because that's what I'm trying to do with my own podcast as well. So like that one hit home for me, you know, so I really appreciate that, man. And so now looking forward, just what are you guys trying to do now? So what's the long term? You said you want to do 1,000-year project. Yeah. Okay. So you've been doing Yes Theory now for 10 years. Where do you guys want to be, or where do you personally see, if it was up to you, where would you guys like to be in the next 10 years?
in real life, physical. You know,
Okay.
it's Yes Theory. The way I describe Yes Theory is that it's a virtual city that has gathered citizens from all over the world that identified with a certain way of living, with a certain, you know, set of values and principles, and now it's time to bring the city from the cloud to the ground.
Okay.
And so it's really like, you know, I look around this beautiful event, and you know, I know that what's next for us is how do we just create things like
Something
that?
like that,
How do
yeah.
you create physical spaces that can mirror the feelings that made people feel a sense of belonging to Yes Theory?
Okay.
And it's really like belonging is the big overarching theme in my life as someone who's sought that belonging from very, very early on in my life and continue to seek it. But at some point I just realized that there's not so many things around that almost feel fit for me to belong to, that I just wanted to create my own
Sure.
system of belonging instead of, you know, values that I felt good,
Yeah.
you know, as having as my operating system.
Yeah.
So, you know, between physical spaces and live events, that's a massive, you know, that's the next 10 years for Yes Theory.
Okay.
Yes Theory is, you know, existed, and people are, you know, now in their 20s and in their 30s.
You guys could do this in 2 seconds. You know that, right?
Yeah. So it's, I mean, not in 2 seconds, but it takes a lot. And shout out to all the.
Not to discredit that, but I'm saying what I'm trying to say. You guys have the platform,
Absolutely,
to bring some incredible people, just like they brought here to this festival. You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really where, you know, we're just excited to be. You know, I wanted to say this on stage, but I forgot. But I just, you know, we just became residents of the UAE.
Hey,
So
welcome, boys.
thank you.
Welcome.
And we really feel like, you know, we've got such big dreams and big visions, and it feels good to be somewhere where big dreams and big visions are respected, and not just respected, but incubated and supported.
Yeah.
And we feel like there's just some massive opportunities for us to be able to move into, you know, the physical realm of what Yes Theory can be,
For sure.
as soon as in this next period.
No, absolutely, man. I love what you said, taking it from, you know, the virtual to the real world. I think the virtual is very powerful, and how you guys have built what you've built. But nothing will ever replace, you know, now there's AI and there's robots and all this stuff, but this kind of connection, meeting someone in person, like,
Exactly.
if you can create a memorable experience, a memorable conversation, sometimes one conversation changes everything.
Absolutely.
So I really resonate with that message. I think you guys can 100% do that. As just to round off our conversation, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, people who have done this kind of things that you have done, and like Yes Theory and all these kind of guys, I don't think it wasn't, and you kind of touched on it at the beginning, it wasn't meant to turn out like the way it has. Over time, it became this thing.
Yeah.
So if you had to give just one word of advice to entrepreneurs who are, maybe they have a passion, they're doing it, whatever, but it's still not something that they're fully convinced, maybe they, you know, they don't have the ability to dive into it full time. Because looking at your journey, you guys went, didn't have a plan, but you went.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think you need to balance of that.
The number one advice, something I said on stage and I will say here again, is that when you're building a company, there's two elements of building a company. There is building the business organization that then you will refer to as a company, and then you're going to build your physical company.
Yeah.
And that is the real company that you actually build, and every single indicator for whether this thing is going to make it or not is going to be built on this company, on like, who do you surround yourself with? Are we at the highest alignment for what we want to do? You know, do you love the people that you work with? Do you, you know, are you, as I said, fully aligned with your co-founder? Are you doing it for the same reasons? And that's pretty hard. And that's why I actually, like, my advice to entrepreneurs is to, especially if you have a co-founder, which is, you know, I think just it's the experience for a lot of people, is that you almost like focus on like relationship advice of marriage, and more so than like business advice, because ultimately like, you can solve any business problem that you can get,
but it's a marriage, you're right.
But it's a marriage, and if you don't know how to navigate the interpersonal relationships and the dynamics that you know, make us feel blocked from expressing ourselves and from, you know, being, you know, saying fully what we want, ultimately that's going to be the make it or break it for the company.
Yeah.
Whether it's with your co-founder, whether it's with your direct team, or with your entire team. So
actually, this is a great. Sorry to interrupt you, Ammar, but this is a great point. So because you guys started when you were younger, and now you guys have been doing it for 10 years, so you're much older now. I'm sure you've gone through many different experiences collectively and individually.
Yeah.
Probably you guys also have different visions for maybe one day you're like, three of you were like, I think we should go this way. Someone else is like, no, I really want to go that way. So I think it'd be useful to just, if you could give us an example of how, when disagreements arise, which they will, because it's people and it's not a bad thing. It's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
How do you come to a consensus that there's going to be compromise for sure?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very simple. I think Yes Theory started with 4 co-founders, and now we're 2. Two of us. Darren left first. Darren kind of came accidentally into the group because he was like in the same apartment that we all started in, and he was helping us film. But then he found it to be a very meaningful and fulfilling adventure that he stuck with for a bit and moved with us to the US. But very early when we moved to the US, he just realized that, oh no, my dream was to become a writer and make movies.
Fair.
So his own way of pursuing his yes and seeking discomfort is to leave this thing that was, at the time it was like a rocket ship, we're growing and Snapchat is paying and this and that. So he applied the Yes Theory to him, to himself, and it wasn't necessarily that he becomes a part of Yes Theory, but his yes took a different shape. And then, Matt, in our other co-founder, in 2021, he kind of came to a similar conclusion where he realized that he actually just needs some time to figure out what is it that he wants to continue doing in his life. But for us, we all knew what we were building very early on, and we knew why we were building it. So we made sure that whatever any of us personally wanted to do, that it wouldn't affect the greater vision and the greater direction for where the company is going. And of course, it's like very challenging, and it's you have 2 founders that are from a technical standpoint that are exiting the company, and like you're buying back shares, and it's all these cash flow issues. It's a whole world. But ultimately, we know that the seed, the birth moment of Yes Theory was just an incredible amount of love that was shared between me, Matt, Thomas, and Darren, and us realizing that that's the most valuable thing that we can have, and it's what we have to protect for above anything, because people connected with Yes Theory because they saw the love that existed between us, and that's how they believed that the best things in life happen when you step outside of your comfort zone, and the deepest connections that you will create are the ones that are created outside of your comfort zone. So if all of a sudden they just see us go out on social media and be like, this guy like that, and then the whole thing just loses its credibility, and that's for sure. That's what we would just not let happen. And as I said, there's a version of this that could have allowed us to cash out a lot faster and a lot more effectively, but it became a question. It's like, do we want to do this for 5 years, make the most amount of money that we could make, and then dip and we could go and do still meaningful things?
Of course.
Or do we want to make sure that what we envision this as, which is like a global movement with many nodes around the world activating it in their own ways, then if that's the choice, then we have to make certain sacrifices and certain commitments, and one of those commitments is to just make sure that the love between us and the cohesion of the company, the people, is just at its highest alignment.
No, man, you know what? Listening to that story, thank you for sharing that example, because it's a very important example. Because even when you said 2 of the co-founders that left, I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. You know what? The proof of what you guys, the vision and the message of what you guys did still holds true even after they left, is you said it. It inspired them to go on and find their own yes.
Exactly.
And that means, because it's easy to say yes and things work out great. But when it's, I'm going to take a complete 180 here and this is what I'm going to say yes to now, that's a different story. It doesn't always work out, and it can come with, like you said, a lot of challenges. So I would commend you. That is the proof that you guys did a good job.
Thank you, man.
From my perspective, that's the proof. Because when they left and it was difficult, they still went and to continue to take their messages in a different format.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You talked about building a global community. I'm an ambassador for a community here as well called Founder Connects. It's a bunch of founders, and we get together and we support each other and we help each other. And I've been having conversations about like the tenets of a strong community. What is it? You can have, let's say, the biggest people in the world, most famous, whatever. But from my perspective, what I've learned is the value of a community is from the engagement, support, and relationships that you build in it. So now looking at how you guys built Yes Theory, what have you found was like, that was the key to really unlocking like that passion in the community?
It's a good question. And I feel like maybe my answer will be a bit unconventional because, you know, I feel like what we did was just simply create a space for people to gather in. And that was, you know, in 2016 or 2017, it was just a Facebook page called Yes Fam.
That's how it started.
Yeah, like it wasn't a platform. People were already connecting in the comment section, and that's what pushed us to be like, oh, there's demand for more. But ultimately it just became, you don't tell people what to do or how to do it. You create the space and let the natural formation of these groups and these communities happen. And of course it's challenging because there's a lot of young people and a lot of drama and a lot so it's a certain level of creating community guidelines and ways of like a protocol of how people, a constitution of how people deal with each other is really important. And we haven't been perfect and we haven't been like the most present with it, because we just realized that the best thing we can do is to make Yes Theory resonate in people's minds and hearts at the highest level. And that's how the community will live, because it doesn't need we don't want just like it being like these fan bases or fan groups that are like, oh, we all watch Yes Theory together. So I just want it to be like someone who's like watched, as I said, the Wim Hof thing, and then all of a sudden you start in the UAE like a group of people that go ice baths together. You know, it doesn't need to be that you're, you know, coming together to discuss the Yes Theory or to discuss the most recent thing. We just knew that the best thing we can do for this community to exist is for us to show how we are a community within each other, how we are friends to each other, how, you know, the values that we believe in, how we're able to infuse it in the videos that are being made. So it's you know, I wouldn't necessarily say there was like a specific formula for how we've done it. The formula was just like the highest level of authenticity that we can practice, because ultimately those nodes got to have their own identities and their own ways of operating. It can't just, if it's all connected to the central thing, then you have a single point failure. Yeah. Then like if all of a sudden Yes Theory ceased to exist because, I don't know, maybe one of the exits with the co-founder didn't go well, then all of a sudden this entire thing that we've built for 10 years just collapses because the thing itself, and we just didn't want that. So, you know, it was more challenging, could have probably, you know, grown it so much faster and collected people's emails and put them in all these, but ultimately it wouldn't have felt as natural as it does right now for people.
What I really appreciate, man, listening to this conversation on a personal level has been very inspiring. So context, guys, I've watched their videos. So when they told me I was going to have the pleasure of sitting with you today, and I watched specifically the Wim Hof ones because I was like 6 months into like my practice, and then I saw you guys pop up, and I was in my head, I'm like, I wonder what experience it would be to like go there and do it. And then I saw that and I was like, damn, man, that's But I appreciate the message that you guys are trying to do. See, there are once upon a time people planted seeds that got you guys here. Yeah. And now through what you're doing, you're planting seeds for the next generation. Exactly. I appreciate the sense of responsibility that you feel, I can tell you feel you have to protect this message, and you have a much bigger vision for the platform and for the company than, you know, like you said, you could have easily exited. I'm sure there were many opportunities. Money can be tempting, but like you said, you guys stuck to your authenticity, to the why, you know, which everyone talks about. And it resonates in everything you've said today, man. So I wanted to personally say congratulations. Thank you. You guys have built something beautiful, something incredible. I'm a fan. I have loved this conversation. I've been inspired. I've learned so much.
I look forward to checking out your podcast as well.
Yeah, please.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. You're welcome anytime, man. Any last words just for anyone here at the festival?
Yeah, I think the number one, you know, piece of advice that I followed in my own life: ask for what you want, question everything.
You don't need anything else than that, guys. Thank you so much, Ammar. This was an absolute pleasure, man. Guys, make sure to check out this on the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival Backstage podcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Cheers.